Warlord Studios Warlord Titan unboxing series, and we're going to move straight from the head up to the shoulders and start really getting to some of the cool stuff. And as you can see here, I've got the Apocalypse missile launchers. I know some people will say these aren't the optimum loadout for the Warlord, but I'll be completely honest, that is not even my immediate thought with this. I'm going for what I think is going to look cool on top of this Warlord. So let's get these bits out and start having a look into how we think these pieces come, how will they look, how we think they're going to move in. And straight off the bat you can see there are some hefty chunks of resin in this kit, just for what is arguably the smallest weapon on this Titan. So we'll get all the attachments and stuff out of the way and we'll crack straight on with the main event, which is of course the missile launchers themselves. And straight away, these are big chunks of resin, the size of my hand, and as I said, these are the smallest weapons on this machine. The thing you will probably notice straight away is that is some greasy resin. There is an awful residue on this, probably up there with some of the worst residue I've had on some of the models I've had from Forgeworld. Don't worry though, that's not a problem. This is easy to fix, no problem to get over to make sure that paint adheres properly. But going around the model you can see there are no major concerns. Of course, that resin gate at the back is quite hefty, it joins in some fairly fragile places, but once we clip that off, we'll be able to tidy that up no problem. And again, as part of the continued project series, what I'll do is I'll run through how we can take this off safely and ensure that the kit is not affected negatively in any way. There's a little bit of flash on the top, looks like a little bit of mold slip. Again, no problem, it's fairly straightforward. It's not in a compromising location or place. And the same at the back here. There's a few lines, there's a little bit of resin flash on some of these areas, but that is all well within the boundaries of acceptable in terms of Forgeworld resin. On to the second one. Again, straight away we notice just by picking it up there's a greasy texture to it. It's not quite as bad as the first one, so that release agent might not have been as big of a deal on this particular piece compared to the other. But what I do notice straight off the bat is there's that continued sort of slip line on the back of this piece. It's a little bit of a heavier slip line. As that area is being covered up, it might not be a problem, but even if it is, we can show you how to fix that if you do have any concerns about that. Overall, these two pieces of resin, pretty good shape, no major problems, should have no issue getting these cleaned, tidied up, ready for paint on this machine. I am going to magnetize them, and as you can see from some of the pieces I'm about to pull out from here, the two connectors between the missile launchers and the Warlord shoulders themselves do have a bit of an indentation in the bottom. You can see there, all I've got to do is kind of put a fairly hefty magnet within there, and that should slot right on and have no issues sort of holding in place. You will see that on the sides here there's this kind of almost see-through part of resin there. That's not supposed to be there, that's just part of the casting process. That needs to come out. From flicking it, touching it, it is really thin. You can see the light through it if you're quite careful. All that's going to take is a sharp scalpel, a hobby knife, X-Acto knife if you're one of our American cousins, and all we've got to do is just clip the main bit of that, scalp around the inside, tidy up, all nice and simple. Other than that, there are no issues with these connectors. There's no slippage. There's again not as much of a greasy feel. No issues with in terms of casting lines, mold lines, etc. So straight onto the vents for the back of the missile launchers. These are going to go over those areas that we saw previously about the mold lines. So again, we don't have to clear that up too vehemently. We can just clip these off, make sure these are tidy, because people will see those, and then just cover up that slip line, and that's no problem whatsoever. As you can see, a few parts have come off the resin gates on this, and we start to see here one of my personal pet peeves with Forgeworld resin. Whenever you have these sorts of pistons or rounded pieces, there are always resin, slip lines and flash. They're not that bad on these ones, but I have had some horrendous slip lines. As you can sort of see there, you can see there's a definite lip to that. That takes a little bit of filing, a little bit of sanding, a little bit of scraping down. Again, not a huge problem. We can fix that fairly simply, but one of the big things you need to get right if you're casting these is that mold line. Like, even though this is one of the smaller parts of this kit, it's not a cheap kit. So moving on from there, we'll start to look at the last few bits of this kit, which are the missiles. I'm not going to look at those two in too much detail because they're going to get clipped off. Some of them will be applied and some of them won't. So overall, this kit's fairly good. No major issues apart from those slip lines on the pistons, but I'll show you how we can fix those going forward. So, thanks for joining us for Warlord unboxing part 2. And next we're going to start moving on to something bigger and badder and cooler. So if you want to see anything particular, if you've got any specific questions, hit the comments below, like and subscribe. We'll get back to you as best we can. Failing that, see you next time for part 3. Thanks very much and goodbye.